Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a one-pot chicken fajita style pasta, and this one's creamy, it's got plenty of cheese, and it's delicious, man, because it's done one pot. Anything done one pot, these pasta dishes got so much flavor because the water is like full of that starch, which makes the entire thing extra creamy. And guess what? I got so many of these one-pot pasta recipes, man. So if you want to know more, let me know. Let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it. So we're going to start off with some bell pepper. I got like a mixed race bell pepper, man. I hope it got extra flavor. But this is how I actually open up bell peppers. I pop the top inside, like the stem, and then I rip it open. And I'm going to cut them into like the juliennes, if that's what you want to call it. I don't know, man. Just slice them, basically. Then you're going to put it into a bowl with some chicken breast. I got 2 sliced chicken breasts in there, salt, pepper, and a bunch of spices. So we've got 3/4 teaspoon cumin powder, just over 1 teaspoon of coriander powder, 1 teaspoon paprika, half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 3/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. Then we're going to go in with 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, and then we're going to get a bit of lime. Now, I am not going to cut open a fresh lime for the sake of this video, man. That was like out of the fridge. 1 wedge of lime juice, throw that in there and give it a mix with your hands, bare hands, no gloves. Don't be scared, man. You're going to be eating it, so you don't need to use gloves, just clean your hands. So we're going to chop up some garlic. I had a bit of like a fungi garlic, man. I don't know what's going on. We're going to chop up these garlic, and then we got the garlic nipples. Get rid of them, man. Put them in the bin. We don't need them. And then I'm going to get 1 white onion. Now I'm going to slice this thinly, but not super thin, but not super thick either. That size, basically. And also I had to take a bit of intermission in between, man. Very spicy onions attacking my eyeballs, making me cry. So then we're going to also chop up some fresh parsley, and that's all the prep work done. So we're going to go in with 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, heat that up, and we're going to put in that marinated chicken mix. Now, I'm be honest, I forgot to put garlic powder in, so I'm going to go in with like half a teaspoon to 3/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Cook that for about 4 to 5 minutes until the chicken and the peppers are cooked. Oh, what the hell's going on with my feet there, man? Some cool positioning there. So I cook this on like a medium-high heat, but I drop the heat to medium if I needed to. That makes sense? So I'll put that all aside, and then we're going to go in with like 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, then the onion, the garlic, and a bit of salt, because that's going to bring out some moisture, and that's going to allow us to deglaze the pan a bit, if that makes sense. So we're going to cook that for about 6 minutes. You want the onion to have a bit of a bite, not be super soft. And then we're going to go in with 1 tin of crushed tomatoes. Now let me explain something here. When I use crushed tomatoes, I use this tin of muti tomatoes, if that's how you flipping pronounce it. I don't even know, man. But basically, if you're going to use tomatoes, you're going to use finely chopped tomatoes. Not plum tomatoes, not roughly chopped tomatoes. If you do, you'll have to like mash it and blend it and all of that, and it's just headache. Or you can actually use passata if you want. Now, passata is basically blended tomatoes, but if you are going to use that, you're going to make sure that it amounts to 400 grams-ish. And the reason for that is because the tin of crushed tomatoes that I used is 400 grams, and the amount matters here, because when I put the pasta in later on, I'm going to explain to you the ratios of fluid to pasta. And that's going to be very important when making this one-pot pasta dish. Make sense? Okay, let's carry on. So the tomato we're going to put in and cook off for like a minute or 2, and then I'm going to go in with 700 ml of vegetable stock and then 250 ml of double cream. I'm going to give that a bit of a mix, and then we're going to bring this mixture up to heat, and then we're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of coriander powder, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and half a teaspoon of cumin. And then we're going to add that all in. I'm going to go in with some black pepper. Now I like a lot of pepper, so I'm going to add a lot of pepper, but you don't have to add a lot of pepper if you don't want to. So I'm going to add in some dried oregano, I've sprinkled that in, and some dried parsley, and then finally some chili flakes. Going to mix that up, and then again increase the heat. We want to get it up to heat like this. Can you see? And then we're going to go in with 400 grams of fusilli pasta. Now obviously you can use any kind of pasta you want, but right now I want to talk about the ratios. Now when I talk about ratios, I mean the amount of fluid you're going to put into the pan compared to the amount of pasta you're going to put in, so that it cooks perfectly and everything works out. So the first thing that I used is a 400 gram tin of crushed tomatoes, and then to add to that 700 ml of vegetable stock, and then 150 ml of double cream. Now that gives me the total amount of fluid in the pan, which is 1250 ml. And then I use that amount to cook 400 grams of pasta. That's the ratio, 1250 ml of fluid to 400 grams of pasta. Now this isn't exact, because sometimes you got to eyeball the dish, and if it looks a bit dry, you might have to add like another 100 ml of water, or a bit more. Basically I do it in this recipe, so I'm going to show you what that looks like, so hopefully that will explain everything. Make sense? Again? Good. Let's carry on. So then we're going to go in with a good sprinkle of salt. Now remember, you use veg stock, that is salty anyway, so just be mindful of how much salt you add. You can always adjust it later. Now I'm going to bring it up to heat on like a medium-high heat, and we're going to cook this for 10 to 12 minutes. Now in between you're going to stir, because you don't want to stick to the bottom, but keep that heat high. Now you might have to drop the heat like I did here, because I need another 100 ml of water, because the pasta wasn't done yet and it kind of evaporated too soon because the heat was a bit higher. But that's fine, just drop the heat a bit. And at this point I was like 11 minutes into the cooking process, so the pasta was basically done, and I add that chicken mix back in. followed by the chopped parsley. Now I'm going to mix this in really well, and still bubbling away because the pasta, I'm just letting that get to the point where it's fully cooked, and then what I'm going to do is just do a bit of a taste test. And if it's done like it is here, I just turn the heat off, and then I've got all that fluid in the pan. That residual heat is going to cook that, so you don't want it to be like fully dry. At that point I went in with the hard cheese, and then 4 cheeses. You can use mozzarella cheddar, you can use cheddar, you can use mozzarella, whatever. I prefer this one. Again, the heat is off here. And also these little bits fell off the side, man. We're not wasting that. Get the hell back in the pan. And then we're going to mix that through. Now again, heat is off. We're not cooking anything. We're just letting everything melt through. And then once you mix it really well, you're going to get them stringy cheeses, man. Like that. Delicious. You can play the violin on them string cheese with your tongue. Just saying. So to finish it off, we're going to top it off with a bit more hard cheese or parmesan and some parsley. And this final product. Okay, now that the dish is done, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to make this entire thing perfect. So the first thing is simmering the pasta. Now, I've had people make these pasta dishes in the past, and they made it and they're like, oh, it didn't come out right. My pasta was like very soft and soggy. And I'll tell you why. Because you need to make sure you cook it on like a medium-high heat. So once you put that water in and everything brought up to heat, keep it on like a medium-high heat to even a high heat. Okay, because the water evaporation and cooking it at the same time will do it perfectly. Now, if it gets to a point where the water is reduced down too much but the pasta's not done yet, just add like another 100 ml of boiling kettle water and let it continue simmering. You can always drop the heat a little if you need to. So the second point I want to talk about is the chicken. Now, when you cook the chicken, you need to remove it from the pan. Now, you can actually keep the chicken in there with the peppers, but what's going to happen is when you start putting everything in there and you don't remove the chicken and the peppers from the pan, the chicken is going to overcook and the peppers are just going to disintegrate. So yes, you need to remove it from the pan to add it back in later. The third point I want to make is when you have like some sauciness in the pan, take the heat off, because that residual heat is going to bring everything together. You don't want it to be fully dry, then take the heat off, because it's going to dry the entire thing out. So what I tend to do is when the pasta's cooked and there's like water in the pan, I take the heat off and then I add in plenty of that hard cheese or parmesan if that's what you want to add in. That's like the equivalent of when we make pasta and then we add scoops of pasta water to thin it out, and that with the starch in the water is going to thicken the entire thing up. What you can do instead is leave some water in the pan, like a couple of spoons of water in the pan, and then take the heat off and then put in the cheese and let the residual heat do the work. Make sense? And now the final point is reheating the pasta. When you reheat the pasta, obviously it's going to be thicker, it's going to be drier. So what you might need to do is add some boiling water, bring it back up to heat and let it cook through and then heat everything up. But what's going to happen is, guys, it will overly soften the pasta, unfortunately. There's no way of getting around that. Okay, you can, actually there is, that's a lie. You can microwave it, blast it in microwave, but it won't be as saucy and as soupy as when you initially made it. That's the point I'm trying to make. And that's about it, guys. That's the video. If you want me to make any other dish or any other pasta dish, let me know in the comment section below. And also, give it a thumbs up, man. Just tell me if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.